Hello and welcome to this week's episode of For the Love of Chiropractic, 3 Keys of My Success. If you're one of our newer listeners, welcome to the show. Glad you're here. Glad you're joining our community of chiropractors from literally around the world. Also, if you're one of our long-term listeners, welcome back. Glad you're here and enjoying every one of these episodes that we get to bring to you. By the way, if you know a successful chiropractor that you think needs to be interviewed, whether it's yourself or somebody who's helped mentor you, and you think they should be interviewed on this podcast, reach out to me via the website, fortheloveofchiropractic.com, and I would love to speak to you and them to help more chiropractors become more successful all the time. On today's show, I get to speak with a doctor who has successfully opened and operates 27 chiropractic offices. In addition to that, he opened his own school at one point. He's wildly successful. I invite you to listen to this amazing interview with Dr. Dennis Short. Hello and welcome to Secrets of My Success, part of For the Love of Chiropractic podcast series. On each episode, I'll be interviewing one highly successful doctor or business person, asking them what are their 3 keys of success or secrets they've used to make themselves so highly successful. So let's get started with today's show. So I have the pleasure of having on the phone with me today Dr. Dennis Short, who joins us from one of his offices that's in Kentucky. Dennis, are you there?
I am here, Dr. Freeman. How are you?
I am great, and it's so good to hear your voice. So I know we were chit-chatting before we started recording, and the snow that I'm getting now, you had yesterday. So I really appreciate you sending that my way.
Hey, if you want some more, I got some.
No, that's okay. It slows down the patients just a little bit, so we don't need that.
We don't need that.
All right. So for the listening audience, how many years have you been in practice?
At this point, I graduated in 2001, so we're right at 24 years.
Fantastic. And you graduated from where?
From Palmer in Iowa.
All right. Yeah, I'm actually leaving this Saturday to head down to visit Palmer, Florida, where my daughter's in school. I love the Palmer system. They just have a great system to make chiropractors.
Absolutely. But they don't have any snow.
Not in Florida. Well, they did. But anyway, so tell me about your path of becoming a chiropractor.
Well, that's an interesting story, a very convoluted story, but here goes. You know, when I graduated, well, first of all, I'm Canadian. I graduated I went to high school in Eastern Canada. And when I graduated high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I started to study to be a captain on a big ship, like a cruise ship or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I went to sea and realized that was not for me. So anyway, I went back to university and I started studying to be a marine biologist and started working for a research institute in Eastern Canada when equally I figured out that was not for me. So thought I was going to go to medical school. And so when I went to medical school, I was moonlighting at nighttime while I was doing research during the day. And I just looked around and goes, oh, my Lord, their life sucks. You know, they're there. They have on their 3rd marriage. Someone's sleeping on some, gurney there. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I said, I can't do this.
Yeah, why would you want to do that?
Someone talked about, what was that?
I said, yeah, I don't know why people want to do that. Thank God somebody wants to, but I'm glad it's not us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad they're out there. And I have several doctors and nurses in my family, and thank God for doing it. But it wasn't for me. And so someone introduced me to chiropractic, and all I did is I shadowed a chiropractor for an hour. Mm-hmm. And oddly enough, I'm going to tell you the truth, Robert. This guy kept on saying, can you think of a better way to make $400,000 a year? Can you think of a better way to make $400,000 a year? And the reality was I didn't. And I was a poor student. And right. that rang to me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a chiropractor. Yep. So I applied to Palmer and got accepted and went on down. But the first time I was ever adjusted, I was actually in chiropractic school. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. And I know it's crazy, but that's what happened to me. So now looking back in retrospect, I say this is what God's plan was for me. It was a calling. I was led there because it makes no sense whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so fast forward, you got out of school, you associated or opened an office?
I first associated, but I went to South America. You know, I was wise enough to know that, you know, once you get into practice and you're married and have kids, you can't just, you know, shunt off to some foreign country. You know, you got responsibilities. So I said, if I'm going to learn something that's sort of outside of the box, now's the time to do it. So I went to Peru and I practiced for 10 months. Home base was Lima, but I mainly adjusted the Quechuan Indians up into the Andes Mountains.
Wow.
Then I came back to Kentucky, and my girlfriend and I at the time, she's also a chiropractor. We started our practice in Kentucky.
Okay. So you said girlfriend at the time. Are you still with this young lady?
Absolutely. She is my one and only. We are married. We have been married now for 23 years. 23 years, I think. Don't tell her I said that, right?
Yeah, we can edit that part out. It'll be okay.
No, you can leave it in. She just laughed at it. Okay. But she is my partner in all of this. She's a chiropractor as well. We now have 27 chiropractic offices.
Wow.
And I'm more of the face and I manage the doctors, and she's more behind the scenes, and she does all the payroll and all the tax stuff and all the banking and everything. So we're a great team, and we definitely would not be where we are if we never had each other.
So if you have 27 offices, you and your wife, because let's face it, they're not yours, they're hers also.
Yes.
What makes your offices, your clinic system unique?
Well, you know, it's hard to say what that is these days because there's so many different variations of chiropractic. You know, we're all insurance, so we're 90% of our patients are insurance, so we're not a cash-based practice. We're mainly focused on family care, so we basically, that's just a fine way of saying we accept everything that walks in the door. You know, but, you know, with 27 offices, as you can imagine, we got doctors that are skilled in sports rehab with their certifications, some in pediatrics. You know, some of our offices have decompression, some have laser, some have both, some have neither. So what we like to really think is that, you know, no matter who you are as a patient, we have somebody perfect for you.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. So I'm guessing that all of your offices do subluxation removal.
Oh, yes. So we're definitely adjusting hands-on.
Fabulous. Okay, so that's really, really cool. And with the 27 different offices, and they're each equipped differently, so is that based on each of the individual doctors' likes and preferences, or is there some, is there some mesh net guidelines that you give each office?
Well, you know, there's probably a little bit of both. You know, a lot of our doctors that come to work with us, they come straight out of school. And so really, they're really green and they need some coaching. And so we do, you know, active rehab, for instance, and passive rehab. We do all that stuff. We help them, you know, make their treatment plans and all that. So we help them as much as we can. But we also want to support the individuality of that doctor. Not everybody wants to get into sports rehab. Not everybody wants to see children, or some people only want to see children. So we kind of really let them a little bit of carte blanche that they can do what they want after they get their specialty in there. And that allows our doctors usually stay with us for a long, long time because now they have some autonomy and it's not just, you know, in and out, do what I tell you to do, that type of thing.
I like that. So having built 27 offices, so far, what would you say your 3 keys of success are?
Well, you know, it's interesting, you know, you never really think about these keys of success until after you get successful and you look back in retrospect and you say, what did I do? What was different, you know?
You do know that's exactly why we're doing this podcast.
Right. And I applaud you for doing it. Absolutely. So I would say the number one thing is vision. You know, understanding that you need to know where you're going. You know, Zig Ziglar, God rest his soul, was one of the best motivational speakers out there. He used to give a story about this archer who from 100 yards could hit the bullseye and then with the second arrow split the first one. And then in a whole auditorium of 10,000 people, he said, I can teach everyone here how to be a better archer than that guy in 10 minutes. And they all laughed. And he goes, like, how can you do that? He goes, providing I take that archer master, blindfold him and turn him around 3 times. And everybody, of course, laughed. And he said, it's funny. And he said, and the reason it's funny is because how can you hit a target that you cannot see? Ooh. And, vision is just that. I also teach at a chiropractic school, and I'll let you know that one of the things I do in the business classes, which I specialize in, that's what I teach, I really get there and say, okay, everybody close their eyes, and I want you to picture your office. Go and find out what it's going to smell like, what it's going to look like. Can you see your front staff? Can you see the colors on the wall? Can you see all that? Get them to really feel it, right? Go through all of that process. And then when they open their eyes, they write it all down. And now what we're going to do is we're going to work to create that.
I love that.
That's what we need to work, is to create that vision. And, and to be quite honest, then I think the second key to chiropractic success is just that: work hard, and that comes in a lot of different ways. And the 2 main ways that I look at that is, first, work hard on yourself. Okay. Realize that I rarely meet successful people that don't read great books, that read the books like Think and Grow Rich, and our friend Larry Markson's, Talking to Yourself is Not Crazy.
One of my favorites.
They listen to Tony Robbins. They listen to Dan Sullivan. They immerse themselves into great books, and they have great friends and great people to support them. So, if you think that you're mentally strong enough to watch bad TV, read bad books, and have bad friends, and you say, I'm still going to be successful even in that bad environment, you are sadly mistaken. You cannot grow great crops in bad soil. No. You can't do it. Right. And so it comes down to it. We need to make sure that we immerse our mind in good things, good books, good people. That's one thing I think that's really important. And the other part, of course, of working hard on yourself is your skill, your chiropractic skill. Keep working on that. But also the other skills, as you know, you've been a successful chiropractor for many years. There's other skills too, communication skills.
Absolutely.
Right. If you don't like public speaking, I would suggest you go do a Toastmasters class.
Yep. Right.
If you have social anxiety, I would suggest you maybe go get counseling or do whatever you need to do in order to surpass that. But you need to work on yourself. And, somebody has got to get out there and do it, and nobody's going to do it for you. And, sadly enough, again, I teach students that are young, and this is the day and age, and this is going to be a controversial statement, but this is the day and age that people think they can be whatever they want to be. I'm just going to be me, and the world is supposed to accept me as I am. You are sadly mistaken. That is not how this works. This world, just in case you haven't realized, is very judgmental.
Absolutely.
They're very judgmental. So if you have social anxiety, nobody's going to follow you. If you can't look them patient in the eye and tell them what they need, they're looking for a leader. They're looking for you to be that leader. And if that's not you, then the thing is they're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I don't like it either. Judgmental. They may not say it, but they're thinking it. So it's so important for them for you to realize, as a chiropractor that's trying to grow your office, that I need to work on me.
So vision, decide what you want and visualize it, see it, own it. I mean, in living color, like we used to say back in the day.
Yeah.
And then working hard on you, as Larry used to say, to be the best version of you. It's your job to build yourself up in strong and noble thought. And that's so much easier to do when you surround yourself with good, rich soil.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
What's
but the other part too?
Go ahead.
One second. There's a second part to the work hard, though.
Go ahead.
Okay, and I think it's important for me to say that.
Sure.
The other part is the actual real, what we expect of working hard. Boots on the ground, seeing patients, adjusting them, time management, all that stuff. In the early stages of my career, and my wife as well, we worked 6 days a week. Okay.
Me too.
We were at one point, I was on 16 different clubs and boards in the community. Okay. I was up doing young entrepreneurs at 6 o'clock in the morning and business after hours things you can't imagine. The Citizens Police Academy and firefighters, citizens firefighter, everything that you can imagine. I got my hand. Knows me, and this was the years, of course, before the internet. And so if people didn't know you in town, you got nothing.
Oh, exactly.
At least now you can do a Facebook page, right? You know, back then there was nothing. So, you got to work hard. You really, really got to work hard. And, years ago, and I'll give you an example of this, and because everybody thinks they work hard. So years ago, a guy read a book that I had written, and he called me and he said, can you coach me? And I'm like, I was just getting ready to start a school and all that stuff. And I'm like, I really don't have any time to do that. But, I'd hate to see a chiro struggle. So I tell you what, send me your statistics and I'll look at them and I'll help you. And I'll just go through it on the phone with you and see if I can help you. He was so ecstatic like that. I was happy to help him free of charge. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, when he called me back, I talked to him. He had great communication skills, okay? I looked at his billing profile. He was doing great services. His collections were good and all that stuff. The only problem was he wasn't seeing enough people. So I asked him, I said, what are your hours of operation? And he said, I work on Monday all day, half day Tuesday, okay, all day Wednesday, half day Thursday, and I don't work on Friday. I said, what about Saturday? He goes, no, I don't work on Saturday either. I goes, I know what your problem is. He goes, what's that? I goes, you're lazy.
Right. It's a part-time job.
It's a part, like you said, and obviously he got offended because nobody likes to be called lazy. Nobody listening to you would like that. Okay. So, I'm like, you got to realize he said, you don't understand. I work so hard. I goes, no, my friend, you believe you work hard.
Right.
You haven't even seen work hard yet. You have to be open when patients want you early, late. Later on, when you get successful, if you want to create a different schedule, when you cut that down, by all means, you've earned it. Until then, you work your butt off.
Yep.
Okay. And of course, he wouldn't drop it. He wouldn't drop it at all. And he was like, so he's getting very defensive. And so then I said to him, I goes, and by the way, you have another problem. He goes, what's that? I goes, you're uncoachable. And that's what I think is the third thing to the chiropractic success. Be coachable, okay? You have to be able to say, I don't know what I'm doing. You need to find a good coach, someone you trust, someone you think is not just trying to sell you something, but somebody who really has your best interest in mind. You need to find somebody. You got to realize most people have no idea what they're doing wrong. They cannot see their own flaws.
No, of course not.
Even Michael Jordan, arguably the best basketball player ever, still had a coach.
Absolutely. Tiger Woods had 3 coaches when he was at the height of his career.
And can you imagine if Michael Jordan, when Coach Jackson said to him, he goes, hey, when your fadeaway jump shot, your legs are supposed to go in front of you. You're going behind you. Can you imagine Michael Jordan saying, shut up, coach. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm a better. Can you imagine that? Or he didn't say, thanks, coach. I got to change it. Which one do you think happened?
Exactly.
Right. And so it comes down to it is you have to be receptive to that coaching. Somebody has to show you the naked truth of your flaws. And you have to say, you're absolutely right. Now, what do we do in order to go off and change it?
Right. Coaching is a very safe space where literally you can be, figuratively, you can be naked and talk about your flaws, your issues, your fears, and work through them safely with that person and build and be a better, bigger, stronger you.
Right. But remember, you can only do that with someone you trust.
Absolutely.
No one becomes vulnerable with somebody they don't trust.
Right.
So
Exactly.
if this coach, you don't trust them, find one you do.
Yep.
Okay. But also success leaves footprints, right? Make sure that coach knows what they're talking about.
Absolutely.
You don't want someone who flunked out of practice trying to tell you how to practice.
Right. All right. So with your phenomenal experience, I've got to ask you a question.
Yeah.
So is it possible in today's world for a doc just getting out of school or someone who's having difficulty in practice, is it possible for them to become wildly successful in today's world with all the pressures and the economy the way that it is?
Absolutely. There's no point in a person's life where they can't change and become better. So of course they can get there. But look, the key word there was change. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So too often when people ask me to coach them, what they want me to do is tell them that they're rock stars when really they're not.
Right.
Okay. And
Yep.
they go off and basically say, you need to do this, and they don't listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then they wonder why they're not any better off. It's like the person who goes to the gym and watches someone exercise and never lifts a weight. He goes, man, I've been to the gym, for a full year and I haven't lost any weight. You don't do anything when you're there. You're just watching people.
Right.
Okay, you got to do it. So absolutely, a young doctor, I don't care if you've been in practice for 20 years and success has always eluded you. You can still turn it around and be wildly successful.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so you just said be wealthy successful. How do you define business success?
Well, let's face it. I'm a raw person. I tell it like it is. And sometimes that irritates people, but I don't really care. This is who I am. Okay. So I will tell you, I still think that money is a part of this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When people are, business success is all about all this stuff. No, money is still a part of it. Okay. But again, it's not the only part of it. I know people that have $1 million income into their office. They bring in $1 million in their office. And when you look at their expenses, they have $1 million of expenses. They're making nothing.
Yep.
They got no wage, no profit, no anything. I know lots of people like that. Okay. I like to call that the illusion of success, because it's not real, is it? Because you got to have some profit, or what you have is not much of anything.
Right.
But, so yes, you have to have some profit, but also you got to love what you do. And that's great for chiropractors. I rarely meet a chiropractor who doesn't like what they do. So you got to love what you do. You got to love who you work with. And you got to know that you're making a difference. So to me, business success is a profitable business where you can take care of your family with that. You can live a great life. Okay. But also you got to love what you're doing. You got to love who you work with and know you're making a difference.
So, and I love that. So our time is running short, unfortunately. Let's transition. How do you define personal success? How do you define that?
Well, obviously, a rich person who hates his spouse, I don't consider that successful. If you love your family, but you can't pay your mortgage, that ain't successful. Okay. If you have both money and a family, but you're spiritually bankrupt, that's not successful, is it? Or if you're unhealthy. So for me, I think personal success is when you have it all: health, wealth, happiness, spiritual connection to whatever God you believe in. That's what life is supposed to be. I think that's what everybody should be aspiring to.
I love that. Last question. So For everybody who's listening to this, if they've heard your words and went, man, you know what? I got it. What's their first step?
Like I said, I've coached hundreds of people over the years, and I have this I'm actually in the room now looking at it. I have this saying on the whiteboard that I have. It says, you can never improve your business until you improve yourself personally. And you will never improve yourself personally until you're able to tell yourself the truth. And so what I would suggest you to do is stop lying to yourself. You know what? If you were so great, you'd already be successful, but you're not. So you know what? Doesn't mean you need to change everything about yourself, but you need to be able to help, maybe get a coach again to look at it and say, what is it that I need to change? But you can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, expect a different result. You can't do it. So you got to stop being a victim. You got to stop making excuses. It's time for everybody to become a better person. And when you become a better person, your business will automatically grow. I can guarantee you.
I love that. Oh my God. Dr. Dennis Short, I can't thank you enough. This has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you for taking the time, making the time, and sharing your wisdom with everybody.
Robert, can I take 15 more seconds from you?
Sure.
Okay. I'm trying to create a movement. That movement is called Win and Help Win. Chiropractors have been very, very competitive with each other over the years, and it's definitely got us to where we are, but it will not get us to where we need to be. So I want to thank you for doing what you're doing here, which is not only winning yourself, but starting to go out there and spread that net and teaching other people how to win as well. That's what we need to do. We win when we're together. That's the best that we can be, and we need to stop being competitive and help each other.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being part of it.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
All right. And that's our show for today. If you have a question about today's show or your own practice, feel free to reach out at fortheloveofchiropractic.com. Before making changes to your practice, be sure to seek legal advice regarding those changes and regulations in your state. For the Love of Chiropractic is an RGF production, all rights reserved. And thanks for listening. Original music provided by Hunter Rich Music.